What if the agonizing silence of your unanswered prayers isn't God ignoring you, but the result of a devastating centuries-old lie? They didn't just translate ancient texts, they altered them, intentionally stealing your exact formula for miracles. Discover the stolen truth. Have you ever found yourself completely shattered in the dead of night, staring into the crushing darkness, weeping until your chest aches, only to feel as though your desperate whispers are striking a brass ceiling and falling dead upon the floor? You pour out the deepest agonies of your soul, begging for a miracle, pleading for a breakthrough, crying out for just a sliver of divine intervention, and the only response you receive is a haunting, deafening silence. What I am about to tell you will shatter everything you thought you knew about your faith. The agonizing frustration you feel, the profound emptiness echoing in your prayer life, is not a testament to your unworthiness. It is not a sign of your spiritual failure, nor is it a punishment from an angry God. It is the devastating realization that the method of prayer you were handed, the very foundation of your spiritual practice, is fundamentally broken. It is a carefully constructed illusion designed to keep you entirely disconnected from your true power. Bible Tales US 07 warmly welcomes you to a journey that will forever alter the coordinates of your consciousness. If your soul is thirsty for the unvarnished truth and you are ready to peel back the layers of ancient mysteries that have been hidden from you, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel right now so we can continue bringing you these profound spiritual revelations. For generations, we have been unknowingly trapped in a spiritual cage, taught a model of prayer that resembles a desperate, anxiety-riddled negotiation rather than a true divine communion. Think about the agonizing cycle we have inherited. We are handed dry, lifeless scripts and told to recite them into the void, hoping our pathetic petitions might somehow catch the fleeting attention of a distant, unpredictable creator. We have been conditioned to believe that prayer is an endless cycle of begging, pleading, and bargaining from a posture of profound lack. We beg for healing, we weep for provision, we barter for peace, and then we are forced to sit in a suffocating state of quiet terror, attributing the outcome to a mysterious, often brutal lottery system labeled as God's will. If the storm passes, we are called blessed. If the heavens remain silent and our loved ones suffer, we are coldly told that we simply lacked enough faith, or worse, that our agony is part of a grand, untouchable divine plan we dare not question. This cruel cycle leaves the human spirit battered, exhausted, and completely hollowed out. It is a paralyzing dogma that violently demands your complete submission, yet absolutely guarantees nothing in return. But deep down, beneath the heavy layers of religious conditioning, your soul already knows the truth. The emptiness you feel when you recite those hollow words is not a lack of faith. It is your spirit's intuitive scream that something unimaginably powerful has been stolen from you. To understand exactly what was taken from us, we must journey back to the very origins of our sacred texts, before the heavy hands of empires and institutions sanitized the raw, world-altering power of true communion. Imagine discovering that the words you built your entire life upon were subtly altered. In the original Aramaic, the language actually spoken by the ancients, words did not just describe reality, they generated it. When the texts were translated into Greek and then Latin by early councils, a devastating shift occurred. God was forcefully pushed out of the human heart and placed onto a distant, unreachable throne. The concept of prayer mutated from an internal state of divine being into an external act of desperate begging. Religion became a mechanism for control rather than a vehicle for human liberation. I remember the exact moment I uncovered this truth. I was poring over ancient Aramaic translations in a quiet room, the weight of centuries pressing down on me, when a specific, familiar passage caught my eye. The traditional translation we all know reads, "Ask, and it shall be given you." But the literal Aramaic structure held a completely different, vibrating frequency. It translated closer to, "Create the desire within you, envelop yourself completely in its reality, and you will become it." The difference between those two phrases is entirely earth-shattering. One positions you as a helpless beggar outside locked gates. The other reveals you as a divine architect holding the blueprint of creation itself. The institutions of the time knew exactly what they were doing. A population that realizes it possesses the innate, God-given ability to directly interface with and mold reality does not need a mediator. They do not need to buy their salvation, pay tithes out of paralyzing fear, or cower before earthly authorities claiming to speak for the divine. So, the keys were quietly confiscated. The mystical, experiential aspects of our faith were branded as dangerous heresy, and the sterile, begging model of prayer was brutally enforced upon the masses. We were systematically taught to disconnect our thoughts from our deepest emotions, effectively splitting our creative power right down the middle. We were told to think about what we lacked and cry out for it, completely unaware that by focusing entirely on our profound lack, we were actively commanding the universe to bring us more of that exact same emptiness. Realizing that we have been forcefully separated from our divine inheritance forces us to ask the ultimate question. If begging is not the mechanism of heaven, then what is the true language of the universe? The cosmos is profoundly deaf to our English syllables, our desperate crying, and our repetitive, hollow chanting, but it is deeply, instantly responsive to the frequency of our being. True prayer is not something you do with your mouth. It is something you become in your soul. Think of the human heart not just as a biological pump keeping you alive, but as a massive electromagnetic transmitter, pulsing your most deeply held convictions into the invisible, quantum fabric of reality. When you kneel in terror and beg for healing or financial rescue, your words might be saying that you want help, but your emotional frequency is screaming, "I am desperate, I am sick, I am poor." And the universe, in its absolute, unyielding mechanical love, responds to your dominant frequency, not your vocabulary. It reflects back to you the exact physical reality of the internal state you are currently occupying. It simply says, "Yes, you are desperate." This is the cosmic trap our ancestors fell into, and it is the same trap we have been stuck in for millennia. We are literally praying for rain while feeling the dry, cracked dirt of the drought in our own hands. The ancient mystics understood a secret that modern science is only just beginning to prove. The union of a clear, focused thought and a corresponding elevated emotion is the spark of creation itself. To pray effectively, you must audaciously assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled before a single shred of physical evidence exists to support it. You must close your eyes and genuinely feel the overwhelming relief of the healing, the profound, weeping gratitude of the financial breakthrough, the joyous embrace of the reconciled relationship. You are not asking a distant deity to change his mind about your fate. You are stepping into a parallel reality that already exists within the infinite mind of God, anchoring it into this physical dimension through your own embodied feeling. It is a terrifyingly beautiful responsibility. I wept the first time I truly practiced this, not from my usual sorrow, but from the staggering realization of how deeply I am loved and how intimately I am connected to the infinite. I wasn't reaching up to a closed, brass heaven anymore. I was standing at the center of the cosmos, finally speaking the mother tongue of creation. Once you understand that human feeling is the authentic, undeniable language of the divine, the seemingly impossible events recorded in our ancient texts suddenly transform from distant fairy tales into precise, replicable blueprints. Look with fresh, unconditioned eyes at the life of the master teacher, Jesus. When we strip away the heavy, gilded stained glass theology and observe his actual methodology, a radically different, breathtaking picture emerges. He did not perform miracles merely to prove he was the isolated son of a distant monarch. He performed them as radical, public demonstrations of what happens when a human consciousness perfectly aligns with the divine will. He was walking the earth, showing us the literal physics of faith. Consider the agonizing scene at the tomb of Lazarus. The surrounding crowd is wailing, completely swallowed by the terrifying finality of death. But Jesus does not fall to his knees in the dirt and beg God to reconsider this tragedy. He doesn't barter his life for his friends. Instead, he looks up into the unseen and says, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me." He gives profound, absolute thanks for the answered prayer while the heavy stone is still rolled across the grave, while the unmistakable stench of death is still lingering in the hot air. This is the ultimate, undeniable masterclass in true prayer. He anchored himself completely in the end result. He felt the reality of his friend alive and breathing before the atoms of the physical world had the necessary time to rearrange themselves. Over and over again, he tells the broken people he heals, "Your faith has made you well." He doesn't say, "My unique, untouchable superpower has healed you." He points the finger directly back at the individual's own internal state of assumption. When the bleeding woman fought through the crowd to touch his garment, she didn't just harbor a fleeting hope. She possessed an absolute, unwavering inward, knowing that the touch would instantly cure her disease. Her internal shift was so violent and powerful that it literally pulled the healing energy right out of his body. We have been reading a profound quantum physics manual for centuries and treating it like a fragile children's storybook. These miracles were never meant to be blindly worshipped from afar, keeping us in a state of perpetual inferiority. They were meant to be studied, internalized, and ultimately emulated by anyone brave enough to claim their divine birthright. The undeniable truth staring back at us from these ancient blueprints is that you are not a helpless victim of circumstance waiting for a miraculous rescue. You are the dormant architect of your own reality, finally waking up from a very long, very dark sleep. This realization changes absolutely everything about how you will live the remaining days of your life. You can no longer afford the dangerous luxury of indulging in persistent victimhood or entertaining the comfortable, familiar misery of the old way of praying. The transition from a desperate beggar to a conscious creator is not an easy path to walk. It requires a ruthless, unrelenting policing of your own internal consciousness. When you are hit with a devastating medical diagnosis, a sudden and unfair job loss, or a shattering personal betrayal, the human instinct is to immediately plummet into the abyss of panic and start begging into the empty void. But now, you know the secret mechanics of the universe. You must train yourself to pause in the midst of the storm, breathe deeply, and retreat into the secret, sacred place of your own mind. You must actively close the heavy door to the terrifying illusions presented by your five senses and begin constructing the reality of your desire from within. Ask yourself right now, what would it actually feel like if my prayer were already answered? What would the physical sigh of relief sound like leaving my body? Who would be the very first person I would call? And what exact words would I use to share the good news? Capture that exact, vibrating feeling. Wear it like a heavy, protective garment. Walk through the mundane moments of your day, emitting the frequency of profound gratitude for a battle that has already been won in the unseen realm. Let the cynical world call you delusional. The world has always mocked the visionary architects of the future right up until the building is finished and standing tall. I am telling you my own hard-won truth when I say that the exact moment you stop treating the Creator as a cosmic vending machine and start realizing that the kingdom of heaven is literally functioning within your own chest, the brass ceiling shatters into a million pieces. The haunting, silent void is instantly replaced by a vibrant, pulsating communion with the very fabric of existence. You will begin to see impossible synchronicities unfold before your eyes. Massive doors will blast open that were previously welded shut, and a profound, unshakable peace will permanently settle over your spirit. You are stepping into the glorious inheritance that was maliciously hidden from you for centuries. It is time to get off your bruised knees, dry your exhausted tears, and take your rightful, destined place as a conscious co-creator with the divine. The universe is waiting and breathless, echoing anticipation to hear exactly what you will command into existence next. Ultimately, the journey through our distorted history reveals a monumental shift in human consciousness. We are not, and have never been, helpless subjects pleading with a distant, withholding deity. The historical mistranslation of our sacred texts deliberately stripped humanity of its inherent creative power, replacing the profound, reality-generating force of true communion with the hollow echo of desperate begging. As the original Aramaic teachings and the actual methodology of ancient masters demonstrate, true prayer is an internal state of being rather than a vocalized plea. It is the perfect marriage of a clear mental intention and an elevated emotional state. The universe functions as a flawless mirror, completely indifferent to our verbal cries, but intimately responsive to the electromagnetic frequency of our deepest internal convictions. When we finally understand this quantum truth, the supposed miracles of the past become highly accessible blueprints for our present reality. We are called to step out of persistent victimhood and step into our rightful roles as conscious architects of our lives. By audaciously assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled before the physical evidence even appears, we bridge the gap between the infinite mind of God and our tangible physical world. This spiritual awakening demands rigorous discipline over our own internal state, refusing to let external circumstances dictate our inner frequency. Reclaiming this stolen inheritance is the ultimate human liberation. It allows us to shatter the illusions of lack, operate from a profound space of pre-existing gratitude, and consciously co-create our reality. The supreme power to mold existence has always resided exactly where they hoped we would never look, right within the center of our own hearts. Prayer is not a mechanism of asking. It is the act of becoming. You do not attract what you desperately want. You attract what you inherently are. The universe does not hear your vocabulary. It only responds to the emotional frequency you are broadcasting. Therefore, gratitude is not something you express after an event occurs. It is the very catalyst that brings the event into existence. Whenever you face a crisis, be it financial, medical, or relational, do not react by begging for a solution from a place of panic. Instead, consciously disconnect from the fear generated by your five senses. Pause, breathe deeply, and ask yourself, What would I feel like right now if this problem were already resolved? Locate that specific feeling of profound relief, joy, or gratitude, and force yourself to genuinely feel it in your body. Carry this elevated emotion with you throughout your day, acting and making decisions from the mindset of a person who has already received their miracle. You must rigorously police your thoughts, immediately replacing feelings of lack with the absolute conviction of the wish fulfilled. What is one specific feeling of relief or gratitude you can choose to fully embody today, acting as if your biggest current goal has already been achieved? Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below so we can all learn from each other's perspectives and build a community of conscious creators. If you found value in this message, please subscribe to the channel. Your support gives us the motivation to continue uncovering these truths and bringing you more transformative content.